Well, welcome back to the Courageous Girls podcast. I'm your host and founder of Courageous Girls. I'm so glad you're here. Today's going to be a really good episode. I mean, they're all good, in my opinion, because I just love our guests. But we're going to talk about friendship. It's one that's near and dear to my heart. We talk a lot about this in the Courageous Girls curriculum over the years with our daughters. But friendship is a big topic, and I want to unravel that today. When you just even hear the word friendship, notice what's happening in your body. Is it a good word or does it bring up some pain? It's loaded, and there's a lot in your story that might be triggered here, but I want you to hang in there with us because I think we're going to cover the gamut of what's healthy, what's unhealthy when friendships, how to develop them, how to flourish them, how to set boundaries, all the things. And so to help me do that, I have someone who's become near and dear to my heart, Rachael Gilbert, with me today. She is down in Texas, like most Christian ministries, but she's also a therapist. So like-minded, kindred, and being able to help women on the front lines of therapy. But she podcasts, she's written a book, especially around healthy body image and dealing with our own friend, our body as a friend. And I would just love for you to meet Rachael. So thanks for being with us today, Rachael.
Thanks for having me, Terra.
Yeah. Why don't you just start with just telling us a little bit more about your day job, what you do, your heart and your ministry, and then a little bit about your family.
Yeah, you mentioned my day job. Well, it depends on which day of the week that you meet me. But yes, I am a licensed counselor. My husband and I own a practice here in Texas, BBC Health. And then I'm also an adjunct professor and author and also fellow podcaster and speaker. And then my most proud thing that I do, married 20 years, 3 kids, all teenagers, just sent our oldest one to college. And my ministry, I feel like it continues to just grow and evolve over the years, but especially once I became a therapist, as you mentioned, I definitely just infuse things that I've learned as a therapist and counseling lots of women with what I know to be true about the Bible. And it's just so fun to teach really just fun, biblically grounded, trauma informed tools to women all over.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so we're going to infuse some of that expertise that you and I carry into this conversation about friendship, but we're also coming in just as women ourselves who have a whole journey as being girls, raising daughters as well. So let's just talk about, you know, general things that we hear from women that we walk with, our daughters, around friendship. What are some of the beautiful things and what are some of the struggles?
Oh, that's a good question. Beautiful things. I mean, if you've ever had even one just really good friend, you know how beautiful that is, right? It's a gift. It's fun, it's life-giving, it's biblical that two are better than one, because if one falls down, we help each other up. And that's it's you get to do life together, right? You get to have somebody who really sees you, really knows you, has seen you at your worst, is okay with showing up at your house when you're in your PJs with no bra and your house is a hot mess, and they love you anyway and they don't judge you for it. That's some great things about friendships, I think, of just like you're like, I am fully seen, I'm fully known and fully loved, all wrapped up in one. That's amazing. That's a gift. Anything you want to add to the good of it?
No, I love the like showing up with no bra on because I have a friend that we Marco Polo. Oh my gosh, we see each other. I mean, we're not Marcoing naked or anything, but there have been times where like she's in the bathtub and all I see is her head and I'm like, "Oh, don't drop that thing."
Yeah.
So, that ability to be that real with each other. I know I get ready with her. Sometimes I'll pop on the Marco and I'm, just my ugly morning look. And so the freedom, the piles of laundry, that's the level that takes time. It takes time to get there, but that is such an enormous gift. I also just think about the rawness. I think so much we are working on how to be thoughtful about our words and how to be careful in not hurting others. And in friendship, that is really safe. I think I've treasured most that I can be really raw with my emotions and my words. And my closest friends just hold that with me without judgment, especially with, being a little bit more public facing. having that they really do know, and won't hold me to some of the raw things that need to come out in my grief and in my loss and in my anger and in my sadness. And then being truth tellers, helping me remember who I am when I'm doubting myself. So I feel like those are some of the treasures I've found along the way in my friendships.
Yeah, for sure. And then even when they can walk alongside, like if you ever have a disagreement, for example, or an offense, and that's I think when you really get to test a friendship.
Yes.
Everybody seems to be a friend when things are great, right? But then when you go through something hard, you do get to see how deep is this friendship, and is it real? Is it deep? Is it, we'll walk alongside each other and do this together, figure it out together, or will there be throne judgment or whatever kind of things that
Yeah.
can divide up friendships? Yeah.
That's so good. Yeah, you're pointing to kind of two hards. My mind went split. Like one was the external hards that we go through when you're in a hard circumstance. You really do see who shows up for you in those times, and in close friends or real friendships really sharpen at that time. And then the other one is conflict or hard that happens between us.
Mhm.
How do you handle that on the other side? If you guys are still able to keep moving forward, can you do repair after a rupture, to use our counseling words? So, really good. Okay, anything else we're missing about the good?
Yeah, and I mean, I think, yeah, even just the having someone to celebrate with you, I think especially as we get older, we're not always great about celebrating. Even little things that we just don't stop and go, "Yay, I completed this thing," or launched this. I mean, one of the most life-giving things to me when I launched my book was I had a whole group of friends who threw me my lunch party, and actually, like, did everything. And to
Mhm.
me, that's, again, a good friend where they're like, "Yes, we're with you in the hard, but we're also there to help celebrate with you." And, so sometimes it may not be a lunch party for everybody, but even just small things. I have this one friend who she's really good about celebrating. Like, she's like, "All right, what are you gonna do?" Even if it's out to coffee or even if it's, like,
Yes.
how are you gonna celebrate that you did that or you completed that thing or whatever it might be. So I do think that's just such a gift to have that because I think friends remind us to celebrate.
They do. And it takes a really confident woman to
Mhm.
be able to celebrate other women. And there is that inner voice of jealousy, which kind of adds to the struggle. So I'll lead us towards that. But
Mhm.
this comparison that happens for every single little girl all the way through adulthood that we have to work on bringing back to the Father, and recognizing our place. There's room for all of us. And
Yeah.
so I love that friend of yours. Everyone needs a celebrator, but for all of us to grow in that, to be able to really cheer on one another, it takes a lot of confidence to go, you know what, I have a place and there's good things that happen in my life, and I can and look over and make sure that we're cheering you on. um, that's a really good friend, actually. I think that's a really important point. Is
Mhm.
a friend who can really cheer you on.
Yeah. And they're genuinely happy.
And they're genuinely happy. Yeah, so good. Okay, so those are some of the treasures, and we'll talk about how to foster that later. But for now, let's name the struggles. Like, why is it so hard? I mean, honestly, I just want to name that having good friends is not a given. There, you
Mhm.
might look on Instagram and think everybody has all these friends, and your life doesn't look exactly the same. But I will tell you, even the Instagram pictures aren't all that they're cracked up to be. There's a lot of layers of friends and different names for friends. People will say they have a lot of friends, but they're very alone. So, what do you start by naming a couple of the struggles you hear with women around you, or even what you struggle with, Rachel?
Yeah. Well, you mentioned jealousy, but I think um, so much insecurity, even and even just early experiences with friendships. I know I've been hearing just a thread, not only with myself, but with people I counsel. And honestly, even just recently, I was in the hair salon and heard them talking about how they're just giving up on friendships. Women are mean, women are just mean, like they're, doing that whole thing. And it's a theme you just hear that I think some women are starting to adopt this. It's easier to just not even try to do the friendship because I've just been hurt so much. And I know even you mentioned struggles for me. Like I even think about like when I was in I think 6th grade or so, there was this one girl that I thought we were friends, and then one day the next day I show up to school and she's decided we're not friends anymore. Didn't tell me why, just we're not friends anymore. And if I'm honest, Tara, even to this day, as 41 years old, that can still strike a nerve in me when someone just doesn't reply to a text. That it feels bigger than it should be at times, right? And that's when I know, oh, I probably should do some work around this with a counselor or with the Lord, sit with this because we have such early experiences, even with friendship, that when someone doesn't help us sort through that, because it's not like I went home and told my mom, hey, so and so's not my friend anymore. I just, like, internalized it. I didn't talk with anybody about it. It was just like, oh, well, so what?" So then you're left with this open loop of why? What's wrong with me, right? And so I think a lot of women struggle with so much insecurity that they're almost waiting for the friend to decide not to be the friend. They're waiting for, I'm gonna do the one thing that's gonna make them decide we're not friends anymore. I can't do, I don't like you or whatever. So even the things we see happen in younger girls, I think even as adult women, we can still have some of those little fears in us because we never really dealt with it from what happened back then, and no one ever really walked us through why that happened and how can we have those good conversations. Now I know I'm starting to get into problem solving, but that insecurity, back to your original question, what's one of the hardships? I do think it all of our own insecurities we bring into friendships, and when that friendship taps on that insecurity, everybody kind of does their own either avoidant or anxious or whatever their own weird coping thing is to deal with that, and that can
Mm.
drive a wedge sometimes between us for sure.
So good. Yeah. So we have our own stories with friendships and things that happen to us as kids that a lot of people, as therapists, we think about these things all the time, right, Rachel? But
Mhm.
most people aren't thinking about their entire stories. So I think doing inventory of your friendships really helps you as a woman go, okay, what are my tender places? Where are the places that I will react a little bit quicker to, that I can be more honest about in my friendships if I'm going to want to build a healthy friendship. So I love that piece. The other piece is, the lack of communication. I think at sixth grade, we give a lot of grace. Nobody's teaching you how. And in Courageous Girls, we are. We're doing different. We're trying to come alongside our girls in a different way because those kind of moments happen in human relationships. But then being able to actually talk through the issues is what probably the biggest struggle I see is, I don't know, majority of women do not move toward each other and say, hey, can we talk about the fact that I haven't heard from you in like 5 weeks, after I've texted you like 5 times? That isn't our innate. It's more what the women in the salon were saying, right? Like, oh, she's
Mhm.
ghosting you, and then you cut her off, and now we've canceled her, or we're now going to play the weird game now that we see each other at church. We're not sure what to do. There's just a lot of mind reading and
Mhm.
assuming, and really not giving each other a chance to tell your stories. I'll never forget there was this moment when I was driving. It relates. Hang with me here. I was driving and I was really frustrated with the person going really slow in front of me. And in every ounce of me, and I'm a pretty patient driver, I'm not a rager, but I was getting angry. I had to be somewhere they were going under the speed limit. And I went to speed around them and I realized they were having a heart attack. And I ended up having to call 911, and because their car then started going like this off into the median and was going to go in off. So everything was okay. They got help. But I felt so convicted that I was so angry. And what are they doing, when really they were in pain and they couldn't drive? Something was happening. It was either a seizure or a heart attack. But at the end of the day, that I take that over to my friendships or my relationship, I don't always know why they're doing what they're doing. And I can assume a lot around that. But in the end of the day, I think the struggle is, are we talking? Are we actually asking each other, do I know what's going on in your life and why you might not be able to text me back for 5 weeks?
Yeah.
Okay, that was really long winded, Rachel, but I'll throw that in there in the mix of the struggles.
Yeah. Well, I think that's huge because you mentioned the word ghosting. Unfortunately, I do see that being the route of communication that women tend to take
Mhm.
is
Yes.
instead of dealing with it, I'm just gonna ignore you. And I just don't I know it's not healthy, and that's something I've been trying to teach my girls. I mean, it's hard. I'm not gonna pretend that it's not hard to have the conversation, especially and again, this is me putting my counselor cap back on, especially if maybe women you've had some encounters where you tried to have a
Mm.
conversation with somebody, whether it be mom or sister or a friendship, and it totally backfired on you, and
Right.
they were not healthy and they like, you left that feeling like so just not heard
Mm.
and hurt even deeper and all of that. So then we internalize those narratives of it's better to just say nothing and to disappear like this never happened than to say something at all. And
Mhm.
again, I think that does circle back around to what you were mentioning of those healthy communication skills, but then also, you know, being able to, understand how we know if that person is somebody we can have that conversation with, right? Like, are they
Exactly.
safe? Are we able to
Right.
have those kinds of conversations? And I think we've just gotten to where it's just easier, even if they are a healthy person that we could have a conversation with, it feels easier to just say, I'm just not going to talk to you again. And it just really leaves for
Mhm.
bad it leaves a bad experience in both people
It
of
does.
on that and it yeah and
Yeah,
then we carry that how I like to tell people how we end one thing is how we start the next thing, right?
that's right.
And so when we're just constantly going around your relationships ending them by ghosting them, well, you're
Mhm.
not really starting out on a great foot with the next friend. And so then are we setting that friendship up for success too when we do that?
Yeah, that's so good. Well, and I think it's just making sure that we don't put this person's stuff on top of that person's stuff and recognizing that we're coming into relationships with different personalities, wiring, stories, maturity. And so giving a women a chance to share who they are. And like you said earlier, going through the conflict is going to help us determine, what kind of friendship or the level of this friendship. So let's talk about that word friend. So there was a season where I was like, I'm not going to use the word friend because everybody's throwing out friends. And I think it's confusing us. Like I went through this little, you know, standing on my high horse and trying to say, because on social media everyone's like, hey friends, and then on these podcasts, hey friend, I don't know you who's listening. Like, should I call
Hmm.
you friend? Facebook friends. And then there's our friends like who are supposed to show up when we have a baby or we're sick in the hospital or we get the diagnosis. So when we're talking about friend, you and me, Rachel, we're actually talking about like how to actually have the person who's going to walk with you through the highs and the lows of life. And that's actually very few of the women that you walk with. There's a lot of people that you might call acquaintances or our friends. Like you love to have Bible study together, you love to laugh, you love to have fun, you go, hang out in small group together. And then there's the next layer of friends. So do you have different language for different friends in your life, or are they all called the same thing? I might be getting too technical here.
No, you bring up such a great point because I do think we throw that word friend around so much that it has lost some of its meaning to it. It's kind of like when
Mhm.
people, something that used to bother me is when people would say, I love you, like even from stage, we just love y'all so much. And I'm like, you've never
Yes.
met me. What are you talking about? You love me? Anyhow, that's another soapbox
Totally.
moment.
It's in the same bucket though.
Yes.
That's exactly. Yeah.
But I'm like, when people just start, "I love you," I'm like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa," like, we can't, yeah, so, anyhow, I do think we use that word a lot, and it has watered down its meaning, and I even think internally it can make us feel like we have all these friends. Because this was something as an adult I've had to wrestle with is I have a lot of people who look at me and go, "Whoa, you have so many friends?" Because I'm a part of a lot of groups. I mean, I'm very well connected and all the things. So outside looking in, a lot of people think you have so many friends. And honestly, I could probably even well, for there were years where I convinced myself where I'm like, oh yeah, I do have so many friends. But there weren't very many people who actually knew me on like a deep
Mm.
level that actually knew what I dealt with when I went home at night, right? Other than my husband. And so that's where I do feel challenged when I use that word friend And I'm with you because it's like, what do you how am I supposed to address people where I don't know your name to call you by name, but I'm also trying
Mm.
to address you. So I understand why we use the word friend a lot. I'm like, yeah, I
Yeah.
get it. What else are we going to say? Hey, person, hey, human, it's good to see you. I mean, I'm like, hello, being. So I get why we need to use it, but I think it's just something we need to be aware of that when we call somebody our friend, even, when we're talking about somebody in conversation, oh, yeah, I'm friends with her. Before we say that, going like, actually, the more appropriate thing might be, "Oh, I'm acquaintances with her," right? Because 'Cause I'm
Mm.
like, I've met her once, I know her name, our kids go to school together, but I don't know much more about her other than that her son's in the same grade as my son, right? That's not a
Yeah.
friend. So I think it's maybe something, that we have to just be aware of internally of just going, if I'm gonna, like, call somebody a friend, what does this mean? And then even, I've even been challenged to talk to those friends, the ones that I do consider friends, and say, "Hey, I want you to know I consider you a friend. Like, you're one of my people. You know me." Like, letting them know that, and even letting them know I don't throw that term around, loosely, and that I want to be, that's something I've incorporated within the last year, thanks to you, Tara, of I've gotten intentional about, okay, I'm gonna make sure I get together with these many friends, 2 or 3 friends once a month, like that it's super intentional. And I've even told those ladies in my life, I want you to know I'm focusing on 3 friends, and we're getting together. I'd like to, put something, a recurring meeting on the, not meeting, but get together with you on the calendar once a month for us to go do something. And I've done that with a few ladies. And so I do think it's maybe to, instead of trying to take over, solve the world problem on using the word overuse of friend, maybe we can just go internal and go, okay, how about for me? How can I make
Mm.
sure that when I say that to somebody, what it means to me, and that I'm actually have some of those, deep friendships that where they actually see me.
I love that. And I think you're naming something that is one of the ways you foster healthy is by having time. Like, we just have to have time. I have like different kinds of friends. I also would say there's like a diversification of friends. So I have like my fun friends. I have my, girl mom friends. So we're all in the same stage of life and we've got, overlap in the daily, we're sitting on the sidelines of soccer or volleyball. And so those kinds of friends. And then I call them my heart friends, the ones who I can really do my verbal vomit with. And I can share my heart and they have the ability to hold that emotional weight with me. I have some prayer friends and there are people that overlap in each of those. But I would say it's very rare to find a friend that is all those things in one. And I think that's a big aha for a lot of women because I think everyone thinks my bestie is supposed to be able to do all these things. Like we're going to go on annual vacations together and my husband and their husband are going to be besties. And then we're also going to go really deep and then we're going to show up to each other's games all the time. Like these expectations of friendships are really high. And I think a lot of women are just trying to have a healthy marriage, do a decent job with their kids, maybe, hold and juggle a job outside the home while also maintaining the home as well. And so friendships actually fall a little bit on the priority list in terms of energy, time. So our expectations. So I kind of diversify for that purpose. Like I try to help my friends carry one piece of what I love and need from them. Um, I have a couple therapist friends, right, who get the work that I do and I get what they do. So we can talk at a level that's a little different. We might even use counseling language and they don't think it's weird. Um, so I don't know. What do you think of that idea, Rachel, as we think about diversifying friendships?
Yeah. Well, this is another thing you taught me, and, that was an aha moment for me because I was like, "What? Wait a second, like, I can have different friends for different types of things," and I think that's really powerful, and in fact, I can even just share, a story about it's been probably about 10 years ago, I had a friendship that, we worked really close, and then that whole thing, just like you're mentioning, things got a little weird, time would go by and I wouldn't hear back from a text message, and the ghosting thing was starting to happen. And so, this was about the time I think I was in grad school to become a counselor, so I was starting to learn how to have healthy communication and be more direct, and so I'd sent her a message. It was like my last Hail Mary, because she had been ignoring me, and I sent her a message, and I just said, "Hey, can we get together and talk? I just have some things I'd like to talk to you about." And she did reply to that one. She said, "Yeah, we can do that." So we got together for coffee, and I did just ask her, "Hey, what's going on?" I just basically brought up, about exactly what we were talking about a little bit ago. And we got to have, I can still say that was one of the healthiest conversations I've had, in that we both came to the realization that we were wanting different things that neither one of us could give to each other. She was wanting me to be that friend that you just mentioned, that I was there for all the things, like, that I was available and had, all this stuff. And I was in grad school. So I was able to tell her, like, honestly, I actually can't do that right now, because when I do get a free night, it's for my husband and my kids because of the season I'm in, being in grad school. And she wasn't okay with that, but we were able to part, and, like, both of us knew why we were parting, right? And so now, even to this day, we can still, every now and then we'll text each other if somebody's like, "Hey, can you, do you mind if I send, your email to so and so? They have a question or whatever." And we're cordial with each other, right? So it's not
Yeah.
like, "Oh, we're just, I hate you." It's not that. Like, we both were able to be like, "Okay, we're not supposed to be in a friendship anymore." And so we
Mhm.
had, like, it was weird, but so healthy. I had, like, a
So
friendship
healthy.
breakup,
You had a
like, we
friendship
broke
breakup.
up, but we both were in agreement that, yeah, we're not good for each other. It was so weird.
Yeah.
But it was good. Like, it actually redeemed my hope in friendship, because even though it was sad, like, I
Mhm.
wanted to be that person for her. I knew I can't be. That's not the season I'm in.
Yeah.
Um, and then vice versa. And so, yeah, so that was the thing where it did so much redeem my hope in, okay, have the conversation. Don't, and it felt like I got my power back too with friendships, if you will, because it was no longer did I feel the need to do that. I guess we're just doing the ghosting thing. Because that's kind of where I was. I was like, all right, I guess we're just, I don't know what happened. It's another sixth grade situation. I don't know where she went. But she's gone, and I was like, nope, you don't get to just disappear. You have to tell me to my face that you don't wanna be my friend anymore. And yeah, and she was honest with me about some things she didn't care for, and I was like, "Okay, I can't change those things, so
Yeah,
no,
that is
we're
so
not gonna talk."
healthy, and
Yeah.
I think, Rachel, you're naming something that's so real and probably more common. I think I've had that moment with several friends, and I just want women listening to go, this is a part of the journey of friendship. If you're going to have friends, you're also going to have breakups.
Mhm.
What's different about friendship than like marriage is there's not a covenant. And I have made the mistake of believing like we're going to be besties the rest of our lives. And I long for that. I think part of that comes from my story of moving a lot and having to start over again and again and again with friendships. So I'm really skilled at making friends. That was the bonus of moving a lot. The downside is like longing for the longevity, the consistency over time. And so holding on to things too long when the season is done. But all that to say, there's seasons and friendships. And I think you're speaking to that. And you guys had like an epic, probably small percentage that actually have good closure. And that's
Mhm.
hard to do. And you initiated that. You needed that more than you probably realized, but you were advocating for yourself. And I'm so grateful that friend was willing to come to the table and to be honest together because you live in the same community. It sounds like, right? That's the
Mhm.
most awkward part is when you're
Yeah.
running into each other all the time and you haven't had the formal conversation. So, but friendships are seasonal and there are some that last a lifetime, but they look different throughout the season. So the expectations have to adjust, right? Like what we could do when our kids were little is different when our kids are we're in the intense teen years and everyone's got 50 schedules of we're trying to track. And then someday
Yeah.
there's going to be an empty nest for you and me. We're close, right? We're both in that bucket. And like, oh, I'm going to have way more time for friends at that point. Um, so let's just talk about maybe you mentioned the monthly getting together with your core friends, the ones that are your, I would say, your heart friends. making time for them. What are other ways that you would encourage women to think about fostering friendships? Maybe let's speak to the woman who feels like she really doesn't have any good friends. She maybe knows lots of great women. She has friends with air quotes, but doesn't really feel like she can trust people with her whole self. What might she start with?
Yeah. I mean, so simply put, the first thing is to pray about it. I know that's simple, but I promise you there is another woman out there somewhere praying for a friend, right? Who also is like, Lord, please send me a good friend. And so that's where prayer comes in because I do believe that God will put people in our life. Call them divine connections, just like you're like, I didn't even know I needed you as a friend, and yet here you are. And Terra, you mentioned it. A lot of us have so many acquaintances, and we do have to get real about. You mentioned one thing we have to get real about is that there's seasons for some friendships. I also think we have to get real about that you can't be friends with everybody, even if you
Oh,
like
that's
all the
good.
people, right? Even if I'm like, oh, all 20 of you are awesome. I would love to be friends with all of you. Capacity wise, even if you're a huge extrovert and all the things, you do not
Mhm.
have the bandwidth to go deep with 20 people at one time. And so that's where we do have to ask the Lord, who is it you're asking me
Mm.
to reach out to invest in a coffee? I've had a few of those here recently too, like, just random things that I could tell you about that I felt like the Lord just highlighted a woman and like, I want you to make time for her, like, that's a good investment of your time, and so that's one thing that's super simple, but definitely just pray about it and ask God to show you who. And then as far as the second part of your question of they don't feel like they can trust people and things, that's where doing some heart work around your story and do maybe with a counselor if you need to, could be really helpful because when we're going into friendships with big hurts, it definitely makes it a little more challenging because like I mentioned, for me, I am better now on this part, but, like, used to, if somebody didn't text me back, that was super, like, very triggering for me, um, bigger than it should have been, right? Until I did my work and go, "Okay, well, hold on." Just like you said, I'm assuming, "Oh, they're just over there ignoring me, they hate me." No, they've been out of town for the week, right? Like, and I had no clue, or they've been sick with the flu and I'm over here in my head about it. And that does take doing a little bit of work to go, okay, I also might need to make sure I'm healthy so that I am the friend that when I go into a relationship, I can have that conversation from a place of health because I've done my own heart work as well.
Yeah, that's so good. The other kind of extreme that I'm going to throw out, and I just feel like we're supposed to name it. I don't know why. Maybe someone listening needs to hear this, but is the one that feels really desperate for friends and is like chasing you down, like smothering you, and um, you know, like we're going to be besties, but we barely know each other kind of person.
Hmm.
And I think that doing your story work, the caution, the not trusting part of us, but there's also the women who are attaching just to anybody who will take them. And so maybe that's extreme, but I am thinking about a conversation with a client who is just like, I attract those women and usually avoidant attachments. And then
Hmm.
we have controllers or other kinds of attachment styles. They'll come together and find each other. And so being able to really know your story with friendship and as women, knowing our story with women in general, often our friendship stuff is connected to other women, like our mom and your sisters. You mentioned that. What is
Hmm.
our view of what it means to be a woman? Um, have we bought into the lies that are told about women? Oh, we're just all emotional, or we're all mean, or these stereotypes that get thrown out there that have some truth into them because we're human, broken systems that we're all living in. But there's also a lot of beauty in women and the gift of sisterhood and of having friends that walk with us along the way. So knowing your story, I love that piece. And, we do a lot of timeline work in Living Wholehearted side and in counseling and in our coaching. But in Courageous Girls, that might be something moms can consider is maybe looking at your own story around friendship, maybe talking to a counselor, but also maybe risking with another woman and saying,
Hmm.
can I just talk to you about my journey with friendship? and I want to just confess it out loud. That would be a huge step to developing a heart friend. Um, I feel like there's like 50,000 other things I wanted to talk about with you, Rachel, but we're running out of time. So I would like to talk about boundaries with friendships. Is there what's on your heart that we need to also address? Is there another topic?
I don't know if this is a new topic. I just want to piggyback a little bit on what you said too on and when you start to do your own heart work, you might notice that some of your friendships, because how you mentioned that unhealthy people kind of attract to each other, the anxious attachment and the avoidant attachment and things. And so as we start to get healthy, it's to not be super surprised if some friendships that can cause that friendship to come to an end. I've experienced that back when I was a little more timid and things. I had a friendship who she was just more controlling. And when I started to stand up for myself, she didn't like it. But here's the difference that I would say that I do think we have to do different than what we might see on social media. One thing I don't like is when I see on social media, people do really cute quotes about, you're going to, once you get healthy and strong, just you're going to have people who won't come with you and forget them and all of this, like basically like just if you're getting healthy and you're growing, just forget everybody else behind you and leave them behind. I would prefer to say stop and have the conversation with them about that. Like, don't just do the let's leave you behind thing. Um, Again, it comes back to the healthy communication. Like, if I'm getting healthier, like, back whenever that one particular friend, this one's been probably 15 years ago, I wasn't in a place where I had much of a voice where I could tell her what was happening with me. And now
Mm,
if I had a redo on that, I think I would tell her, "Hey, I'm starting to learn to use my voice. It's not that I don't still appreciate your opinion and your input and things, but the way you're doing it is making me feel not heard." I couldn't
good.
really do that back then, but
Mm,
now if I found myself in that position where maybe I attracted an unhealthy if it was an unhealthy relationship there, I think I would speak into it more. All that
mm.
to say, I know some listeners might be like, I know this because I've seen this in counseling. When I share these kinds of stories, they're like, that it takes their
Yep.
breath out of the room to even think of having that kind of conversation. So I always remind people when it comes to these conversations, you don't start there. You got to start having baby conversations along the way and learn how to advocate, learn how to use your voice, in really safe spaces first before you go out and you're doing these harder conversations with people that you don't know how they're going to respond for sure. So if you listen to that and you're like, that makes me freak out, it's okay. You don't have to start at the deep end. We
We're
can
like,
get there.
just notice it. Just notice
Yeah.
that you're freaking out. It's good
Yeah.
information.
Yeah.
Okay, and that it is. It
Mhm.
is baby step. You and I both have that journey of finding our voice, and it feels easier
Yeah.
for us now, but I still get nervous. I don't want to hurt people. And I don't like letting go of people. Like I'm a
Mhm.
collector of people. I love people. And, but I think to your point earlier, there's only so much margin. And so in different seasons of our life, we have to ask the Holy Spirit, like, where are you calling my attention? What am I needing? And so I think sometimes it's helped me to know that it's not always about you and me in terms of our relationship. Sometimes it's literally just about I'm having to prune a good bush so that
Yep.
there can be more fruit grown. And there's been seasons in my life where I've had to prune friends, um, where I just haven't invested the time or energy in the same way, not because of anything unhealthy about us, but just
Yeah.
because there's just so much going on. And the Lord's asking me, I need your attention over here now. And so that's just hard. So having the conversation to say that, I mean, I feel like it can be spiritually abusive if I blame God for everything. Like, well, God told me.
Yeah.
But it's also a reality that sometimes the endings, or the closure are really less about you and just more about the friendship and more about where someone's at in their journey. Therapy really does, as people are on their healing journey, can really mess with friendships.
Mm.
And so we use the red light, green light, yellow light analogy throughout Courageous Girls. We use it also with our executive coaches and leadership development. But it's been helpful for me, Rachel. I created this back in the day when I was working with parents before my girls were on the playground yet. And I was trying to say, how do we communicate with what's happening simply on the playground? When is a kid a friend and when are they like a bully? And now everybody's a bully. We call everybody a bully, but Bullies are really using their power to do harm, and they require some real hardcore boundaries, and we want to teach our children how to identify that. And then friends, we just have bad days sometimes where we're grouchy or we say the wrong thing, and kids would say the mean thing. So when is it a friendship issue, and when are we needing to set a boundary? So red light, green light, yellow light was that analogy. So green light are friends. They're people that are safe. They're what the Bible calls wise. And they're people who, when we say, ouch, that hurts, or I'm learning to use my voice, and when I say something, I really need you to respond in this way. A green light friend is going to be like, heck yeah, thank you for telling me. Or, will you forgive me? I'm so sorry I was hurting you that way, right? And then we change and adjust our behaviors, or we work on changing so that we can be safe for each other. The yellow light friend, so we call them friends, but I tell my children those aren't really friends. Those are probably more of the acquaintances. They're what the Bible calls foolish. They're not yet, they don't know what they don't know. And so when they do harmful behaviors, this is maybe the mean girl issue where girls are just trying to figure out in their insecurity, and they're, trying to one up each other on the playground, or uh, doing all kinds of things that feel hurtful. And then the next day they're your bestie. It's this hot, cold kind of thing. Yellow light people will say, instead of friends, are people when you say, ouch, that hurts, they go, I'm so sorry. But there's no change in the behavior. So they just go back doing the same thing. And you don't really know if somebody's a green or a yellow until you have some bumps in the road. And the last one is the red light people. Those are the people that are doing harm because they enjoy it. There are very few of them. We're what the Bible calls wolf in sheep's clothing. And these are the ones where we say no, like we do not have any interaction. And so for us as women, as well as teaching our girls, we have to learn how to discern between the three categories, because we can't call the red light people our friends. And we often do that in Christian cultures because we need to love everybody.
Mhm.
But Jesus responds very differently to a red light person than he does to a green or a yellow. So that is a very complex topic that I'm cramming into our friendship conversation, because I think it's a key part of learning, like, there's a lot of people in your life that are yellow light, and we just don't give them our pearls. Like, we don't give them the best of ourselves, but you're trying to discern who are the green light people who I can trust my heart, my mind, my body, and my soul with a little bit more.
Yeah.
Okay, that was a lot. Rachel, what is the Spirit speaking to you when I say that out loud? Hmm.
Yeah, well, I think you just summed up a boundary really well there, right? I mean, how to set boundaries for yourself, even with friendships too. Yeah,
Mhm, mhm,
yeah,
mhm.
yeah. I think the thing that really just I love even just on that is it's the discernment piece, and just asking God for discernment and saying, Lord, who can I trust in this way, and show me. I mean, that's why I love walking with Jesus, because I feel like he just shows us things that we would not see with our eyes. Right. And even when you think about even just trusting your gut, like if something feels off about somebody or a friendship or something, and you have no physical proof as to why, like, I don't know why, but I don't feel like I'm supposed to open my heart to that person. Maybe it's something about them, or maybe it's just not the right time or something. I don't know, only the Lord knows. But yeah, I think that's probably what's coming up for me when you say all that, of just like trusting, asking the Holy Spirit to show us what is it that you want me to see and do, and to be a woman just of character and integrity. And I think that's another thing I really try to rest in now, is I want to be the friend that people would like to be friends with, right? And treat people with respect. And even if it is some of these conversations we talk about or whatever it might be, yeah, just being the kind of woman that people would want to trust and to do friendship with. And then yeah, I just think that goes
Hmm.
a long way in friendships for sure.
Hmm. That's so good. So that might be even another thing we leave people with, is like, if you're wrestling with who can I be friends with, maybe just start with being a good friend, like
Hmm.
maybe asking the Lord, like, who needs a friend, and then being a good friend for someone, and practicing along the way. I
Yeah.
have told friends in years past that like, hey, I'm learning how to do this at this level. Like this vulnerability thing is hard for me. And
Yeah.
so confessing that to one another and being honest. And what was fun is that in most of those situations, they were like, me too, right?
Yeah.
So we were learning together. And I really think if we just lower the bar and just to say we're all in a process here, and that woman over there doesn't have it down with friendships. It's not rocket science, but it is a complicated two people with messy stories, a lot going on, and seasons. I always want to say, think about the season you're in. Um, as we end, Rachel, what is one word of encouragement you want to remind moms of daughters, particularly and courageous girls? As we think about closing, what comes to mind for you that you want to encourage them in?
Yeah. I think just that friendship was God's idea. And even if you've been hurt in this area, to not give up on it, because our daughters will learn more watching us than the things we tell them. And that was a really big motivating thing for me too. As my girls got older, I'm like, I wanted them to see mom do friendships and see me interact with women and, yeah, them get to watch me do it. And so just for that encouragement to be like, when you as you pursue this for you for yourself, it's an overflow to your daughters as well, and they get to see what it's like to have those healthy friendships, and I think that's a really beautiful gift that we can give them.
So good. So if you don't do it for you, you're going to do it for her, your
Yeah.
daughter. And I think that's well said. Thank you, Rachel, for joining. If anyone wanted to find your book or your resources, how can they find you
Yeah, you can go to
or your
my
podcast?
website. Yeah,
Mhm.
my website has all the things, rachelgilbert.com. You do spell my name Rachael. If you wanna
Mhm.
learn about the book, it's imagerestoredbook.com. And then for fun, I do hang out on Instagram at Rachel J. Gilbert. So come follow me there.
Mm. I love it. I love it. Well, thanks for being with me today, Rachel. And for you moms that are listening, share this maybe with someone who you want to grow in friendship with, or lean into some of the women that are in your Courageous Girls group. Maybe take that next step of having an intentional conversation of, hey, I'd love to have more regular time with you. I guess the point is risk a little. Ask the Holy Spirit, like, where do I need to grow? Where are my tender spots? And give me one action step this month and challenge you. And then share this with someone that also needs to be reminded that they're not alone. We're in this together. And as you're journeying along with your daughter, remember that God is the one who chose you to be her mama. And so you are the right mama for the job. So thank you for joining us and look forward to being with you next time.